Alright, so with the help of box components, I finally got my hands on a Prime 9 1x drivetrain for the 2021 Specialized Rockhopper Budget Upgrade Series. I'm pretty excited since they've been out of stock for a while now, but the timing was actually perfect since in the last video we just converted from the slightly outdated square taper bottom bracket to the more modern Holotech 2 external bottom bracket and installed the budget-friendly Shimano Deore crankset with the narrow-wide chainring. Now in this video we'll pull off the remaining stock 2x drivetrain bits and install the shiny new box components Prime 9, and I'll offer my initial thoughts. And then later I'll put up a full review on the drivetrain itself once I get some decent miles in on the 9-speed 1x drivetrain. Yes, you heard correctly, 1x9. But hear me out, the range on the cassette is still an impressive 11 to 50 teeth, which is on par with many of the 11 and 12-speed cassettes out on the market today. So the big question here, are 9 cogs enough, or will the larger jumps between the gears be too drastic and feel awkward? That's the question we'll answer later in this video, but first let's do the conversion and check out how the new drivetrain fits on this Rockhopper. Oh, and full disclosure, Box Components graciously worked with me to support this budget upgrade Rockhopper series, but this is not a paid sponsorship, so all opinions and experiences are my own. Now, I may be wrong, but for me anyways, removing the front shifting may be one of the most satisfying things to do on a bike. You're going to start by clipping the front and rear derailleur cable ends and pulling the cables through. Then you can pull off the stock shifters, and after you remove the stock chain, you can also remove the front derailleur. Now in our case, if we hadn't upgraded the bottom bracket, we could have just removed the 2 stock chain rings and installed a single narrow-wide 1x compatible chain ring, but since we did modernize the bottom bracket, we kind of had to upgrade to a new crankset as well. Now for Rockhopper owners specifically, you'll notice that all the internally routed cables feed through this gaping hole near the bottom of the downtube. Now I must say this is a pretty clever way to incorporate partial internal cable routing while keeping manufacturing costs low. Now for the front shift housing, there's a plastic cable stop that screws into the bottom bracket, which you can remove and toss if you never plan to go back to a 2x system. At the rear of the bike, you can remove the stock clutchless derailleur. Yeah, that's right, no more chain slap with the new clutched box derailleur. Now we'll actually leave the stock housing since it's in decent shape, but we will be using a fresh inner shift cable. Now this time you can also remove the rear wheel and remove the rear cassette using a cassette tool and a chain whip to hold the cassette in place. Now these aren't expensive tools, but they are kind of specialized. So I'll put a link down in the description if you're interested in some budget options. So at this point, we're all set to install the new drivetrain. But first, of course, we need the obligatory weigh-in of the new components. Now the set I received from Box is the mid-range Box 2/3 group, which means the shifter, derailleur, and chain are the Box 2 level, which is right in the middle of the 3 Prime 9 offerings. And then to save a little bit on the costs, the cassette included in this kit is the Box 3 cassette, which is the most entry level of the 9-speed options. So the cassette comes in at 665 grams, shifter comes in at 139 grams, the uncut chain weighs 315 grams, and the derailleur is 287 grams, for a grand total of about 1,400 grams. So not the lightest group out there, but for under $300 retail for the entire group, it's pretty tough to complain. So installing this cassette is the same as any other, and it's compatible with any Shimano HG style free hub. Now you want to be sure to clean and grease the free hub and install the included cassette spacer first. Then tighten down the lock ring as you normally would to the recommended 40 Newton meters. Now put the wheel back on the frame and be certain to use a derailleur hanger alignment tool to make sure your hanger is properly aligned. And one of the most frustrating bike-related things is to waste time trying to dial in a brand new drivetrain and failing all because of a bent derailleur hanger. Once you're sure the hanger is straight, then you can go ahead and install the new derailleur. Install the new shifter and feed the inner shift cable through the housing and through the derailleur cable stay arm and clamp it down to the recommended 4 Newton meters. Install the new 9-speed specific chain, removing enough links such that in the smallest cog, the derailleur is pulled just off its fully retracted position. Use the included quick link to connect the chain and make sure the quick link is fully engaged. Shift into the largest cog and dial in the B screw such that there's a 5 to 7 millimeter gap between the largest cassette cog and the upper jockey wheel. Then adjust the high and low limit screws such that the chain doesn't drop off either end of the cassette. Dial in the main tension adjustment until you can smoothly shift all the way up and down the full range of the cassette, and that's basically it. Now I have to say, riding this drivetrain feels really natural, and even though I'm used to 12 speeds on my high tower, the Box Prime 9 system honestly feels really good. The shifting is really crisp despite the somewhat plasticky lever feel. Now this is a multi-shift version, which means you can cycle through the cassette a few gears at a time, like on most other drivetrains. Now the shift action certainly isn't as light as on some other systems, and you do need to press a bit harder to shift, but the crisp and reliable shifts kind of make up for it. Now regarding the number of gears, I think given the limitation, they really nailed the spacing. And as I've mentioned in a few other videos discussing gear ratios, it's more logical to have the bigger jumps between gears at the lower climbing end of the cassette, as these jumps really don't matter as much. Then as you get down toward the faster end of the cassette, the increments get smaller, which helps to preserve a specific cadence when motoring along the flats. Now looking at this 9-speed cassette, they've certainly incorporated this concept, as the jumps in the climbing end of the cassette are as high as 8-tooth jumps from cog to cog. Still, in practice, you don't really notice a huge jump. Now after riding this around on my local loop, it's honestly a really good system with virtually no flaws. Now certainly this is within the context of a budget build. For this Rockhopper, which is my wife's bike, and a bike that I plan to take out on occasion to mess around on, the box drivetrain is everything I'd want it to be and more. Now would I put a 9-speed wide-ranging drivetrain on my Santa Cruz Hightower? Maybe. I might consider it if there was a more refined 9-speed system with lighter, more robust components. In other words, what I'm saying is that 9 speeds isn't my hesitation, but rather the build quality. Now perhaps the Box 1 system would be a viable option, but then again, the price point for the high-end Box 1 system puts you in the same ballpark as a mid-range 11 or 12-speed drivetrain, so it's kind of a tough call. Anyways, I'm super excited with how this 1x conversion came out, and I think for anyone else looking for a high-value but budget drivetrain upgrade, the Box Prime 9 system is a bona fide winner. Now in the next video, we'll tackle the dropper post upgrade and sort out the internal routing on this unique Rockhopper frame, as well as some general guidelines for speccing and choosing a dropper seat post. Thanks again for watching, and thanks for subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.